All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome back for our closing session of Crew. So we have a pretty short agenda today. We wanted to first just kind of discuss, now that we've had a full training session with you all on all of the different topics that were covered. This will be an opportunity for us just to have a bit more discussion around some of the initiatives that you've started, and then also just talking about some of the things moving forward, what's next, and what things we're going to be doing at our closeout, our final closeout session, or more share out session that's going to happen in December. So we're going to go into breakout rooms today to have those discussions with some queued questions, and then also doing a bit of report back as to where folks are at. And we're going to be closing out. We might end a little early, but we'll see how the breakout sessions go. So I'm going to open up by asking you all to, if you're not familiar with Jamboard, we can definitely have a little bit of an instruction on how to use Jamboard. But I want you all, there's going to be a link that's going to be popping up in the chat shortly, if it hasn't already. Yeah, I should put it in the chat. Please click on that link. So whichever breakout session group you end up on, that's where you will take notes for the discussion today. So make sure that it's kind of, they're in a little bit of it's kind of all together on one board, but there's like little post-it notes, and it has group 1, 2, etc. So just make sure that you write your notes under each group. Also think about what you'd like to share out in the session. As we come back from the groups, we will have just a few folks share out, what was discussed and some of the things that kind of planning forward from here. So here are the questions that we're going to discuss today for our breakout sessions. So first, we want to talk a little bit about what interventions has your clinic decided to work on and why. I know some folks were still trying to figure out your interventions a few weeks ago. We're hoping that by this point, you've already identified what either the main intervention or 2 interventions that you like to focus on. And then also discuss the progress of your interventions. And if you already have those things in place, such as timeline, when the interventions will be implemented, things like that. We'd like to hear a little bit about where you're finding yourselves with that progress in terms of application. And then also share with us some challenges and successes. So, what has been challenging about maybe implementing or beginning the implementation of these interventions. And then what successes have you had if you've already begun and kind of started that process? We'd like to hear back on that. And then the last question is, where do you hope to be when we return for the share out session in December? Just kind of looking into the future and looking at the progress that you'd like to make. So so I'm going to ask Aisha to pop up the breakout rooms, and these questions will also be put in the chat. So I'm going to stop sharing here so I can actually share those questions with you. Give me 1 second. I'm getting those questions ready.
I already posted the questions in the chat, so I think we're
perfect.
Good. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Aisha.
Okay, that's good. I think everyone seemed. Oh wait, hold on.
Still have a few folks out. Oh, thank you so much.
I tried to get a scoop of everything. I didn't know if you preferred Alfredo over marinara, but I just
This is great. Thank you. I appreciate it. All right, great. It looks like everyone is back. All right, awesome. So I'm going to pull up the Jamboard so that we can see where folks were discussing in their groups. All right, so group one, you all had a lot of sticky notes here. So some of the things that I'm seeing are need to train new managers and directors how to use and what it means. Whole team needs to be trained on opportunities for engagement, added wellness components. Great. Engage supportive leadership, productivity, team building activities. So I actually like to go to group one. Maybe if one person can share from group one, just kind of maybe some of the main things that folks are working on. Who was in group one?
Deb, do you want to share?
Sure. I think we had a couple people who were focusing on intervention one, the engaging in supportive leadership. And we had some, challenges about how we're going to recognize people, how we train people to do that, and how we're moving forward with that. We also we sat and listened to reducing the burden on providers, how we can do that, especially, I think it was click burden, which I thought was a great word to use, and how developing a work buddy system, especially for new providers or new clinicians, because let's face it, we all have different workflows, especially with our EHRs, and it really helps to have that, that work buddy there. But our favorite was a retreat. It was just for clinicians, but we thought it should be for everybody. And, several of us were developing wellness programs. So I was really excited about that. I'm very excited about the massage therapy type thing coming into the clinics and providing some massage therapy. And I think did I miss anything, guys? Please speak up.
No, you covered it. Nicely done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deb. Yeah, a lot of great things happening, a lot of great interventions, and it seems like folks are engaged in part of this process. Thank you for sharing. All right, let's go to group two. So I see here, clinician burnout workflow updates, clinician retreat as well. Look, great minds think alike. So who would like to report back from group two?
Yeah, I will. This is Lisa. I'm sorry, I'm just a little bit recovering from a cold, so I apologize for the scratchy voice.
No worries.
So yeah, at Venice, we're really focused right now on clinician burnout. We've had this recent merger, and folks have been sort of feeling some challenges with that. And again, this is a lot about click burden. We also worry about that and making some changes that can reduce interruptions. So the two sort of actionable areas that we're working on are changing the way we order like screening mammograms and order vaccines in clinic, which are very clinician heavy right now, but don't need to be. So we're working on that. And we are planning a clinician retreat for next year, I think for February. Awesome. And other folks are working on some engagement and supportive leadership. Recruitment and retention also came up, and we felt like all of us felt as though we didn't really have enough time together outside of crew to make these, like, plan to operationalize some of these changes, and that was a theme that came up over and again. And we're just sort of all hoping that we can work on some small achievements before our December meeting.
Absolutely. And that's a great point. Just kind of thinking about I'm sorry, I can't say that word, operationalizing the yeah, these interventions and what that really looks like when the interventions are going to be implemented. So thank you for sharing that, Lisa. All right, let's move on to group 3. Who would like to report back from that group?
I could go ahead and jump in.
for it.
So one of the things that we discussed was like the stay interviews, trying to establish the stay interviews to try to prevent employees from leaving the company. Also, trying to get to the employees early when they submit a resignation. Just like that, you could identify any problems or any way to, to try to provide an opportunity for the employee to stay, just because sometimes they might not know that there are other open positions that allow them to, move forward with the company. So try to be transparent in regards to other opportunities that they might have when they present their resignation. Another thing that we discussed also was, I think everybody has a common thing is in regards to a wellness program. So trying to establish a wellness program within the company. One thing I kind of shared was also trying to do what you have. So basically taking a deeper dive in regards to the benefits that you offer and seeing how you could modify them. And one idea was like, for example, bereavement is offered for family members, but you could also expand it to include pets. Like that, it's a great way to, you still have the bereavement policy. Nothing really has changed, but now you're able to allow an employee to take a day off work if they lost their pet. So yeah, that's pretty much what we discussed.
Yeah, that's such a great idea. I'm at the CPCA conference. They were doing a wellness workforce wellness session this morning, and part of that was talking about expanding some of the things that you already have in place, right? How can those some of these policies and things be expanded to cover a larger area, right, of things that we may not think about, that maybe folks have asked for certain days off because of family, extended family passing, whatever the case is, right? Sometimes it's only covered, only immediate family is part of that. So yeah, how do we think about some of these things? So thank you for sharing that. All right, let's go to group 4. I can't, my sight is terrible, so I can't read some of the post-it notes on there. So I'd like for somebody to group 4 to do a report back.
Can volunteer if nobody else wants to jump in, just checking. Okay, I'll go. So group 4 talked about 3 primary things. Wellness was a common theme for everybody. Just being more mindful about the wellness programs that either already exist or ones that we want to develop, as well as stay interviews. I think I heard a different group say stay interviews as well. And one of our members were also reported working on stay interviews for the staff. There were some really interesting and creative ideas, specifically around like creative and fun ways to engage staff. Someone brought up a book club that they started within their organization after work, and that's sort of a great way that I thought was fantastic to bond with each other. Somebody else brought up a really great huddle tactic that they use, where they show appreciation just through a simple prop of throwing a ball to each other and saying a kind thing or appreciative thing to whoever they throw it over to, or giving them kudos. And that was something that was easy to integrate into their practices. Some of us were working on communication plans. That was the other sort of key theme across the board in our group. How do we communicate ideas from our executive team, from our management team, down to the staff members through their different channels? And then there were a couple of, I know we spoke about challenges briefly, but there were a couple of challenges, even with new services and new leadership, that I thought was really impressive. And how do we communicate all these new goals? And so somebody suggested a lunch and learn with the management team or with the staff. Somebody else said, I'm trying to pull out all the ideas. Somebody else said that their leadership team recorded videos on what their scope of practice was and what their goals were. So there were just a lot of great ideas on the table in terms of wellness, communication, and staff engagement. So it was really nice to hear everybody's perspective.
Great. Yeah, it sounds like a lot of great things that are already being implemented, and things that that are not necessarily costing your clinic money, but and then these are things that are important to people: the communication, the contact, the relationship building. So all great things to hear. We'll go to group 5. And I don't see any post-it notes or notes for that group. Who was in group 5?
Hi, this is Bianca. I was in group 5 along with Daisy. I'm so sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name and I don't want to say it incorrectly. And
Shireen.
yes, and one more other person whose name just slipped out of my mind. And I do apologize. I did write wonderful notes. So please jump in. They did nominate me to speak. So
All right.
so our focus was, our intervention was team engagement and team morale, retention, and wellness, and also doing stay interviews. We did talk about some of the challenges with stay interviews is time and scheduling. So trying to figure that and how to roll it out. And we also talked about expanding onboarding to be able to retain our new employees. And we talked about team morale, how coming together during the huddles has been really impactful, having open discussions about challenges and going over those, starting to notice an improvement in team's morale, celebrating Halloween, and doing small activities has been beneficial. So that is kind of what we discussed and where we're at, and we hope to have more, I guess, feedback on how we're doing in December.
Great. Yeah, the state interviews seem to be, I know there were a lot of great conversations during that session of the state interviews. And so that's good that folks are kind of placing their focus even from things that they're able to do with folks that they are retaining in the clinics. So great to hear, and thank you for that feedback. All right, and then we'll end with group 6. Group 6, who was part of that group?
I can speak. This is Gerald.
All right.
Group 6 was Stephanie, Yadira, David, and Jessica. And a great part of our focus was around employee wellness committees. So Jessica and her organizations already have one and a lot of great successes, whereas our organization is looking to implement one. And so, serving as like thought partners in that process. Also, employee leadership, coaching and mentoring, and leadership development. So conversely, we have a program that we've launched here at the center that has been successful, that Jessica's organization is looking to begin. So I think just one benefit is being able to serve as collaborative partners with thought sharing. I know there's a lot of great ideas throughout this cohort where folks are doing things already. So I think being able to lean on folks' expertise and learnings will be really good. Also, too, looking at sort of diversity and engagement throughout the entire organization. So one point that came up is historically either HR alone has led wellness activities or some small sort of sector. And so looking at having that committee that represents all levels of the organization, from senior all the way through. Also to engaging staff consistently throughout these programs with engagement opportunities and feedback opportunities. So, we discussed too, while having these ideas in this space, how do they translate to folks when they actually are using them? And so making sure that we're taking that feedback and being able to adapt and update our programs or sunset them if they're not sort of as successful as we envision. So consistently using that feedback and engagement. And then also we talk quite a bit about being realistic also, in the sense of, this space is like an idea space, but then when we look at sort of building realistic timelines, making sure we have the right resources and funds to support some of our initiatives. How do we work with what we have until we get what we need? And sort of using that as a process to not be discouraged, but just to think, realistically, where are some short-term things we can do, some mid-term and long-term things. And then also setting benchmarks and checkpoints. So rather than sort of building out an entire year's worth of programming, build them out, sort of plan for a year, but have regular sort of opportunities to assess where we might need to redirect. And so those are just kind of some of the high level points that we discussed.
Thank you so much, Gerald. Yeah, really important discussion there with, being realistic about expectations, about timelines, about, all of those details on how to actually implement these ideas that we've been talking about for the last couple of months. So thank you for that feedback as well. So what we'll do, so the link to the Jamboard, if you want to save it, in a space on your computer, somewhere where you can access it easily, this will be available to you all to just kind of reflect back upon as you implement some of these changes in your clinics. And also just to kind of keep you on track, right? These are the discussions that we've had in, as part of the training sessions throughout these last few months. So just kind of a reminder. So feel free to save this link and you can access the Jamboard whenever you'd like, if you'd like to go back to some of these notes here. So next, I'm gonna go back to this piece here. So in December, there will, I'm sorry, in December, after we complete the post assessment, one of the things that we would like to kind of offer maybe are just, just to think about some ideas of what you'd like to do with the funds that will be made available around January, right? As being part of the crew program, if you all remember, each of the clinics will receive funding from us to be able to do a couple of things, and not limiting it to this. Think about what you'd like to do with those funds, but in either investing it in continuing the development of your interventions. I heard a lot of wellness programs that are that are being developed, or if your focus is on something else, what could those funds be used for? And it's also the other thing is to celebrate with your team, right? So think about, as you're implementing these interventions and you're having successes and kind of meeting, right, as your timeline is coming along, how do you celebrate with your team too, right? So you can think about some of these things as well as brainstorm when you go back to your, your teams at the clinics, and really think about how you want to put these funds to good use, whether it's through the interventions or whether it's through team celebrations, or however it is that you feel would be best served at your clinic. And then lastly, just as a reminder, we do have that share out session in December. So even though we're closing out kind of this series of trainings, we will have an intervention sharing for December. So we're asking all of the clinics, all of the teams to prepare at least 3 slides answering the following questions. And the key takeaways, we've been doing kind of, key takeaways from each of the trainings, but this is kind of more overall, right? To encompass your overall experience of the program. So your key takeaways learned from the training sessions, an outline of your interventions, and then the intervention outcomes. So it doesn't have to be, again, super long, minimum of 3 slides. We're going to have each of the clinics present for that share out, just to see where folks are at, and maybe, ways that that we can continue to support some of your efforts. And then also, we will be recruiting for the next crew session. So, we've had, the LGBT Center came back for a second, the second crew session that we had. There are opportunities for folks to participate if you think that this is going to be something that you'd like to continue doing. We're going to have different topics and things. So just something to think about, on where you're at and what progress you've made up until this point. Any questions on any of this closing, preparing the intervention for the intervention sharing? Any questions or comments?
How much time do we have on this for the presentation? And that's 2 sides, but time-wise.
Time-wise, so I believe we scheduled about an hour and a half for December. So I'm going to say probably, I would say between 8 to 10 minutes each. yeah, so try not to go over that time just because we want to make sure that we get around to everybody sharing out. Okay,
Thank you.
no problem. All right, so there are no other questions. I just want to remind folks, so we will be sending you all a DoorDash gift card as a thank you for your participation today. So all those in attendance will receive one by the end of the day. Actually, no, probably by tomorrow. My apologies, by tomorrow. So because Nina actually has to order those and send those out. So I need to get all of your names and send them to her so that she can get that done. All right. Any other questions or anything before we close out today? We're closing out a few minutes early, so just want to make sure that I check in about questions or anything that that you all are curious about.
Andres, this is Deb. I don't really have any questions. I just want to thank everybody because I thought today was really valuable, and it's, you know, really nice to hear that a lot of us are on the same wavelength. So it's going to be interesting to see how that works, you know, how we come up with different things within those projects. So thank you very much, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, I just want to thank you all for your participation and also for all of the feedback that you provided in the breakout sessions, right? Your valuable questions in the trainings, and also the feedback that we received in the poll. These have been really helpful for us to kind of know, you know, about how to structure our program better, how to improve it. So I appreciate everyone's feedback. So if no other questions, oh, Alex wrote in the chat, don't forget to continue to have your coaching sessions with Expert Effect. Definitely, if you haven't finished those out, you still have that opportunity. And then they will also be doing the kind of the closing, the post assessment. So make sure that you schedule some time to meet with them to do that. So yeah, if anything else, if you have any other questions afterwards, please feel free to reach out to me. You have my email. And if not, we will see each other in December. Have a good rest of your afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.